Hey there, good people, it's your Crippled Critic, and this week I want to talk about a new game, Resident Evil 7. Resident Evil 7 is a survival horror game developed and published by Capcom. The game has you trapped in a house with the Baker family, a group of backwoods psychopaths living on their plantation in Louisiana. You play as Ethan Winters and occasionally his wife Mia as you find weapons and tools in order to fight to survive in the Baker's House of Horrors. This time around, Capcom wanted to go back to their roots with the newest entry in the Resident Evil series. Capcom developers realized that the sheer scale of the last game, with its over-the-top action movie sort of feel, had gotten out of hand. What made Resident Evil special had been lost, so they decided to strip the series down to its core, which is survival horror above all else. Series veteran and executive producer Jun Takuchi assembled a team for Resident Evil 7. The game's director is Koshi Nakanishi, who previously worked on the Resident Evil Revelations games. He also led the development team in Japan. However, for the first time, Capcom decided to hire a Western writer to do the story for Resident Evil 7. His name is Richard Pearsey, and he's also written for other video games like the Fear series and Spec Ops: The Line. Another first for the series was opting to use a first-person perspective, saying it could help immerse the players in the environments, and also limit their view from behind them. Director Nakanishi explained that they played all the popular first-person horror games out there, but decided in contrast to offer weapons to the players so they could fight back against the enemies. So the team wanted more of an intimate feel for the game, with very few characters and taking place in a more isolated area in just one place. To do this, they took inspiration from the Evil Dead films and Texas Chainsaw Massacre. I also noticed quite a lot of themes taken from the Rob Zombie films, at least when it comes to the psychopathic family. Movies like House of a Thousand Corpses or The Devil's Rejects. Character designer Morimasa Sato said that The Shining was a big inspiration for him. In fact, the two Jacks in the film, where Jack Nicholson plays Jack Torrance, are why he chose the name Jack Baker for the father figure character of the deranged family. Sato says that Jack Torrance didn't just help him create a monstrous villain, but a villain who had human elements. Like Jack Torrance, Jack Baker is portrayed as a family man whose anger is rooted in a twisted sense of parental responsibility.
Ethan! Ethan! Ethan!
Stop swinging the bat.
Stop!
Give me the bat. Wendy! Give me the bat.
You may remember me reviewing the first 3 demos for Resident Evil 7, and I really did enjoy them. By the 3rd demo, though, I was worried that the combat was too difficult and I wasn't going to be able to play the full game. At least not a console version. Thankfully, I was wrong. Capcom made sure to put just the right amount of accessibility options in the game to allow me to play and enjoy. So let's get into these controls. Yeah, I do expect Resident Evil 7 to be somewhat challenging for disabled gamers with fine motor skill impairments. Precise aiming of your gun and quick movements during combat may just be too much to handle for some disabled gamers. For me personally, first-person games are already really difficult for me to play because of both control sticks being required to move and aim simultaneously. However, Resident Evil 7 offers a variety of customizable controls that does help with this. Although not completely customizable, Resident Evil 7 lets you invert the trigger buttons, like R1, R2, and L1, L2. These are your attack and defend buttons. You can also invert the control stick buttons, like L3 and R3, which let you sprint and crouch. Now, sprinting may sometimes make things easier in the game, but I can honestly tell you that I never once had to use it in order to beat the game. You can also swap the left and right control sticks if you prefer to aim with the left control stick and move with the right. Gamers with hearing impairments shouldn't have any trouble playing the game. Resident Evil 7 has reliable subtitles available, as well as a really useful icon that can be switched on in order to let deaf players know of background noises such as a telephone. Like most survival horror games, the soundtrack does have a lot of eerie noises that help build tension. But Resident Evil 7 is full of disturbing imagery, dilapidated old houses, and massive amounts of gore, which help create atmosphere in other ways. On the visual side of things, the game offers many different options for disabled gamers with visual impairments. When you take damage in Resident Evil 7, the screen becomes slowly covered in blood splatter. If players feel like the blood hinders their view, you can turn the blood splatter down in the options menu. The game gets pretty dark, so there's also a brightness scale you can change. For colorblind gamers, Resident Evil 7 gives you the option to change the color of your aiming reticle or remove it entirely if you want. I will say that many of the puzzle and healing items in the game are different colors, just so the player will know what their purpose is, but they're also clearly labeled when examined. So let's talk about the gameplay. Like I said before, combat can be tricky in Resident Evil 7. Being able to swap the control sticks is really the only reason I was even able to play Resident Evil 7 on the PlayStation 4. The game does have an aim assist option that not only points you to the nearest enemy, but it also combines the aim and fire buttons for an easier combat experience. The game offers 3 different difficulty levels to choose from: easy mode, normal mode, and hard mode. On easy mode, you're given a much larger health meter, and the ammo in the game is less sparse. I definitely recommend this mode for any disabled gamer having trouble with the combat. Although Resident Evil 7 does let you attack enemies head-on with firearms and melee weapons, I do want to talk about common enemies in the game that can be avoided. These enemies are called the Molded. You see, the game intentionally gives you a small amount of ammo to work with, so you're encouraged to conserve resources or plan accordingly. One tip I want to give is that I found the Molded to be pretty easy enemies to avoid as long as you get behind a closed door. The Molded can't maneuver through closed doors, so if you're quick enough, you can get to your destination without having to fight them at all. However, dealing with the Baker family won't be as simple. The family members that chase you throughout the game can't be killed, except for during very specific moments in the game. So your only option is to try to escape from them, or hit them with every weapon in your arsenal to weaken them and buy you some time. Speaking of the Baker family, oh my god, are they terrifying. Now I know the idea of crazy, cannibalistic, zombie redneck people, it's kind of a silly setup, but I think you should give it a chance. For me, having deranged humans chasing you is just a hell of a lot scarier than your run-of-the-mill monster. The Bakers aren't just violent, they have personality, and with their disturbed view of what their family is, it just makes them so creepy.
I am sick and tired. Sick and tired of your bullshit.
I need to hide. I need to hide.
Why are you putting me through this? What have I done to deserve this except open my home and feed you? I don't understand you at all. This is a gift.
If there's one bad thing I can say about the story, it's that I kind of preferred the story of the Bakers and what made them the way they are, more so than the scientific reason that the game tries to give, which the last third of the game focuses on. I get it though. This part is trying to go into the origin of the virus that's infecting everyone, and it is one of the parts of the game that really feels like a typical Resident Evil plot. Resident Evil 7 was awesome. I had so much fun being scared. As an old fan of Resident Evil, I can honestly say that this game brings some new life to the series. Don't worry, this is still Resident Evil. You'll still be collecting red and green herbs, and there's actual combat in the game, plenty of it. Believe me, you'll have just as much fun collecting your huge arsenal of weapons as you will running away from psychopaths. I was blown away by it, and I was pretty skeptical before. If you're a disabled gamer and any of the gameplay I described seems a little too tough for you, then I do recommend playing it on the PC. I personally was able to play it fine, and I was impressed with Resident Evil 7 having so many different accessibility options. There you have it, guys. Tell me what you think about Resident Evil 7. Are you happy with where Capcom's taking the series? Let me know in the comments. Well, thanks again for watching, guys, and I will see you later.